So today we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. We had graphed this, but we were a little bit rushed at the end. So did everybody understand how we got the -6, -3 for our vertex?
Yeah.
Yeah? You want me to go over it again? Okay, let's go over it again real quickly. Okay, so when we're dealing with parabolas, any kind of an x squared graph, we're either going to have a low point or a high point. And I want to find that low point or high point if it's going upside down. When I square a number, what is the smallest perfect square? 0. So if the thing that's being squared is equal to 0, then that's going to have to be my low point for this one. So the first thing I do is I look at my x plus 6 and I figure out, okay, what's going to make that equal 0? So what would make that equal 0? If x was -6. All right, so if x is -6, essentially I've got 0 squared minus 3, don't I? So what's y going to be? -3. So that's going to be my low point of my graph. So I go to -6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, -3, and that's the low point of my graph. Now, is there anything out in front of the x squared? No, so it's going to follow the same pattern as my y equals x squared, right? So in my parent graph, when x is 1, what's y? 1. When x is 2, what's y? 4. So if I imagine that this is my origin now where I'm starting on my vertex, if I go over 1, how much do I have to go up? Just 1. If I go over 2, so 1, 2, now I have to go up 4, which is 2 squared, right? Okay, so it follows the same shape because there's nothing in front of the thing that's being squared. There's nothing that's going to stretch it or compress it. Right? And so what would my axis of symmetry then have to be for this one?
X equals -6.
X equal to -6, yeah, because it has to go through the vertex. So x equals -6 is the equation of my axis of symmetry, and then my vertex is at -6, -3. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at another one. Now this one is going to be changed by a factor of -2. So are we expecting this one to go up or down?
Yeah.
This one's going to go down because of the negative. And is it going to be stretched out or compressed?
Stretched.
It's going to be stretched out, right? Because of that 2, we're doubling all of our y's. So, again, I want what's in the parentheses, the thing that's being squared, to be 0, so that I can find the high point in this case. So what's going to make that 0?
3.
A +3. And if I have -2 times 0 squared plus 4, that just goes away, right? Which is the whole point. And so my y is going to be 4. So I go to 3, 4, and that is my starting point. Now, if I was just doing y equals x squared, again, we would go left and right 1 and up 1. So plus or minus, and we would go plus or minus 2, and we would go up 4, right? But now I can't do that because I have this -2 out in front, and that's going to change everything. That's changing my y values. So it's not going to be up 1 anymore. It's not going to be up 4 anymore. It's changed by a factor of -2. So I'm going to let you guys try and graph that yourself and see how you do, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, all eyes back up here? Okay, so on this one, normally, if it was a regular parent graph, I would go from my origin, or from my vertex, I would go to the right 1 and up 1, right? But my up 1 is getting changed by a -2, so instead of going up 1, I do what? Down 2. All right, and then I'll do that in the other direction as well. Then, again, from my vertex, if I go out 2, normally I would go up 4. But I already know I have to go down because the negative, right?
Yeah.
So if I go down 4, have I gone down enough yet? No, I have to double it because of the 2, right? So I go down 8. And that gives me another set of points. And that's what your graph should have looked like. If you did it like this on a test, you would be fine, yeah. I'd like to see more than just 3. I'd like to know that you understand the concept of how the graph works and how it's all related. So, okay. All right, so let's see here. I need to label my vertex and my axis of symmetry. So what is my axis of symmetry going to be on this one? Just 3? Just 3? Is that the equation of a line? X equals 3 is the equation of a line. Okay? So that's the equation of my axis of symmetry. And then 3, 4 is my vertex. Okay? All right. So starting to sink in a little bit? Okay. Good, because we're going to learn something new. Okay. Oh, skipping over that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we've got another form of the line. This looks different this time, doesn't it? Do I have anything that's being squared? No. So I'm going to have to figure out what happens with this one. But I still want to make my parentheses equal to 0. So I want x plus 4 to equal 0, and I want x minus 1 to equal 0. So if I want x plus 4 to equal 0, what's x going to be? It's going to have to be negative 4. And what about on the other one? Positive 1. Okay, so if I make x equal to negative 4, I'm going to have 2 times 0 times negative 5, aren't I? Well, here I skipped a step. Let me not skip the step. Okay, I'm going to have y equals 2 times negative 4 plus 4 times negative 4 minus 1, right? If I plug in a negative 4. And that's where I got the 2, and then that becomes 0, and that becomes negative 5. So what's it equal? 0. And that's what we were expecting, right? Because we were trying to make those things equal to 0. And anything times 0 is 0. Okay? So we've got the point negative 4, 0. So what do you think is going to happen if I plug in the 1?
1, 0.
Is y going to be 0 again? It is. Okay. If you don't believe me, you can check it yourself on your note paper, plug it in and see. But it is. Okay. So, can I have 2 vertices? No, so that must not be my vertex, huh?
No.
No, in fact, it's what are those things? What do you call the things on the x-axis?
X-intercepts.
They're the x-intercepts, aren't they? Okay, so this form is actually called intercept form. All right, so now I've got to figure out where my vertex is. First of all, am I expecting this one to go up or down? Should be going up, right? So that means that my vertex is going to have to be down here. So, whoa, I just messed that up. It's going to have to be down in the bottom half somewhere. I was going to try and point, but I guess I can't point with that thing. Anyway, so it's going to be down in the bottom, right? Okay. Any idea what I could do to find it? Like, get a clue where it might be. Anything?
In the middle between the 2 points, so it's the...
Can you say it nice and loud, Zach?
It's going to be the middle, in the middle of the 2 points, so you add them together and divide by 2.
Okay, it's got to be in the middle of them, right? Because what do we know about parabolas? They are... Well, let's see. They have an axis of symmetry, which means they are symmetrical. Yes, okay. So the axis of symmetry has to be right down the middle of those 2 points. So yeah, you just find what's exactly in the middle of those 2 points. Well, yeah, you can add them together and divide by 2, average them, or you can even count on a number line if you want to and figure out the middle. How far apart are those points? Well, they're apart by 5, right? And so if I go 2.5, that'll get me to the middle from either end. And yes, that's at negative 1.5 or negative 3/2. So my axis of symmetry is at x equals negative 3/2. So what do I have to do to find the vertex now? You plug in the x that you just got. Exactly. So y equals 2 times negative 3/2 plus 4 times negative 3/2 minus 1. All right, why don't you guys see if you can figure out what y is? Okay, so if I could have your attention back. So, when you're dealing with fractions, especially like with halves, sometimes it's easier to think of it as money. So if I have negative 3/2, that's negative 1.5, right? And a positive 4. I have $4. I spent $1.50. How much do I have left? I've got $2.50 left. So what is that as a fraction? 5/2, right? 2.5 or 5/2. Okay. Or you can get a common denominator. You can do it that way too, but I like to do it in my head. The next one, I lost $1.50 and then I lost another $1. How much did I lose? I lost $2.50. So that's negative 5/2. All right, so now I can cancel one of my 2's out, right? What's 5 times 5? 25. So it equals negative 25 over 2, which is negative 12.5. So my vertex is going to be at negative 1.5, negative 12.5. So I run out of graph, but your graph should be big enough. So 11, 12.5, about right there. That's my vertex. And then my axis of symmetry I already labeled. Now if I wanted to get one more point, what's the easiest thing to plug in for x? 0. If I plug in 0 for x, I'm going to get my y-intercept, aren't I? So if you want to get one more point, you can do that. Your y-intercept then would be y equals 2, and then 0 plus 4 would be 4. 0 minus 1 would be minus 1. And so your y-intercept ends up being negative 8. And so that would be right here. And then you could have the mirror image on the other side. And then you've got plenty of points now. You can draw your parabola. Okay, so I have one for you that doesn't have, well, it doesn't have as many fractions. It does end up having a fraction in the end, but not till the end, okay? So let's have you guys try and do this one. Before you do the whole thing, let's have you show me what you get for your x-intercepts, okay? So find your x-intercepts first, then you'll find your axis, and then you'll find your vertex. Okay, so I'll let you guys work on that, and I'll come around and see how you're doing. All right, so we agree the x-intercepts were at negative 1, 0, and 5, 0. And so where did your axis of symmetry end up being?
2.
X equals 2, yes. All right, so now you guys can find your vertex. Plug in the 2. Okay, so when you plug in the 2 for x, you get negative 1/2 times 3 times negative 3, don't you? And that should come out to a positive 9/2. What is that as a mixed number? 4.5, isn't it? Okay, so I go up 4.5. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. There's my vertex. There's my parabola. So my vertex is at 2, 4.5. And my axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Okay? But wait, there's more. But the rest of the stuff you're going to think is easy after graphing. Okay? All right. We are going to put it in standard form. So this doesn't have to be on graph paper anymore. This is just regular line paper. Okay? So to put it in standard form, I just have to multiply it all out. So this really is like an Algebra 1 problem. We're just multiplying binomials and then multiplying that times the negative 2 out in front. So I'm gonna worry about my -2 later. I'm gonna worry about my parentheses first. So what's x times x?
Square.
X squared. What's x times -8? -8x. What's 5 times x? Positive 5x. What's 5 times -8? -40. Do I have some like terms that I can combine? Yes, I do. What do I get when I combine them? X squared minus 3x minus 40. All right, then the last step is just to distribute my -2. So -2x squared plus 6x plus 80. Is it in standard form now? It is. So wasn't that relatively painless? We multiplied by -2. All right, so let's have you guys do that one on your own. It's up to you. You can do it on whiteboards or you can do it in your notes. I don't care which way. But that one you guys are going to do yourselves. All right, so it looked like you guys were all getting the same thing. What did you get? -4x squared minus 8x plus 12. All right. The other way you might see it is in this vertex form. But it's the same idea. We're just going to multiply it. So if I have f of x equals 4 times x minus 1 squared, I can write my x minus 1 times x minus 1. Okay, I'm going to take care of my parentheses first. Then I'm going to multiply my 4. And adding the 9 is the last thing, right? In order of operations. Adding is going to be the last thing we do. So don't add the 9 too soon. All right, so x minus 1 times x minus 1. I get x squared minus 2x plus 1. And then I still have my plus 9. And then I distribute my 4. I get 4x squared minus 8x plus 4, but I still have a plus 9. And then all that's left is to combine your 4 and your 9 together. And so we get 4x squared minus 8x plus 13. Okay? Any questions on what I did? Clear as mud? Alrighty. So you guys get to do this one. Again, if you want to do it on your notes or whiteboards, I don't care which way. G of x equals 6 times the quantity x minus 4 squared minus 10. I'll let you guys do that one on your own. All right, so you guys all were getting the same thing. G of x equals 6x squared. What was it? Minus 48x plus 86. All right. So, any questions on that? All right, that's it for the lesson then. Okay.